Have you ever wondered, who will be waiting for you the exact moment you die? Close your eyes for a moment and imagine, in your final breath, as the lights of this world go out, is there someone there on the other side waiting for you? Someone you loved? A mysterious stranger? A luminous being, made only of peace and compassion? Maybe an ancestor so distant you only knew them from family stories? Or is it possible that, at that sacred threshold, the journey is made in complete solitude? The truth is, at some point in our lives, we've all asked ourselves, what happens exactly after life ends here? Who's on the other side of the veil? It's not just a morbid curiosity or a silent fear, it's something deep, visceral, that has resonated since childhood on a dark night when the feeling of infinity knocks at the door of our consciousness. Are you ready now to hear truths that could forever transform your view of living and dying? Before we continue, I want to ask you for something special. If this topic touches something inside you, if you've ever felt that unsettling chill or the warm desire to find answers, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and, most importantly, comment here. Who would you like to meet first on the other side? A loved one? A spiritual guide? Say their name. Write a feeling. Your participation could console and inspire other hearts also looking for answers. Now come with me, because the next revelations might shake and at the same time calm your soul. To cross this mysterious portal between life and death, we need the light of a guide. And few names shine as brightly in this field as Edgar Cayce. Maybe you've heard of him, maybe not. But imagine for a moment, a simple man from rural America who became one of the greatest mystics of the 20th century, known worldwide as the Sleeping Prophet. Edgar Cayce didn't write books with his own theories, nor did he found religions. He simply dreamed, literally. Cayce was able to access deep trance states. Sometimes he would fall into spontaneous sleep, and there, in that state between worlds, he would receive vivid visions about the soul, past lives, healing, and especially about what happens in the moments right after death. He gave over 14,000 readings throughout his life. Sick, distressed, curious, and even skeptical people, from all corners, sought Edgar for answers to the deepest mysteries of existence. But why him? Because Cayce didn't just describe what he saw, he touched on dimensions that seemed, at the same time, universal and profoundly intimate. It wasn't about dogmas, but about direct experience. His authority didn't come from academic titles, but from the power of his visions and the transformation he brought to thousands of lives. He showed that death isn't a punishment, an emptiness, or oblivion, but a conscious journey wrapped in universal meanings, attuned to the real quality of your journey as a human. Edgar Cayce's greatest legacy was to say, without fear, you don't go alone, and who meets you on the other side isn't a result of chance, punishment, or luck, but a mirror of your own spiritual development. Can you now hear, almost like a whisper, the call of this ancient knowledge? Feel the energy of these words and get ready to see with the eyes of your soul, because the journey that begins now will speak less to reason and more to your deepest sense of belonging to the universe. Imagine you're there, lying down, feeling the light weight of your body. The air enters and leaves your lungs for the last time, and then silence. But it's not an empty or dense silence. It's a living, pulsating silence, as if every cell of you is dissolving into an ocean of tranquility. There is no more pain, no more fear. You realize with absolute clarity that you are awake, but outside the chains of time and the limitations of the physical body. The first feeling is peace. A peace so indescribable that no human word can truly translate it. Imagine a subtle field made of soft light, both warm and cool, that permeates all the residues of anxiety that once existed in you. In this threshold, this corridor of light, you don't walk, you're simply carried, as if gliding smoothly on an intelligent and loving breeze. The fear of death, so strong for a lifetime, dissolves like smoke in the wind. Maybe for an instant you see familiar scenes, your house, a favorite tree, familiar smells, sounds that marked your childhood. Everything seems alive, but also ethereal. The memories don't come as distressing thoughts, but as small sensory portals. Aromas of coffee, the touch of a mother's skin, the golden light of the sunset through the bedroom window. And as you move through this threshold, everything that was ego, pain, or attachment loses meaning. It becomes small, as if life gets an immense zoom, revealing a colossal perspective on everything that once had importance. You don't cross this corridor alone. Sensations of gentle presences, like whispers of ancient melodies, begin to fill the environment. You know, without a doubt, that there are beings there awaiting your arrival. There is no rush. There is no judgment. Only acceptance. And for the first time, maybe, you feel that you belong to something infinitely greater than you ever dared to imagine. Cayce described this threshold of death with almost photographic clarity. According to him, the soul, as soon as it leaves the body, is enveloped by a vibration so intense with that love and understanding that, for an instant, the very notion of separation disappears. Crossing this threshold is like coming home after a long journey. And this isn't an empty promise, but an intuitive certainty, engraved in the deepest memory of your being. Can you feel it? Can you visualize, even for a second, this journey to another world, where the light doesn't burn, but embraces? And then, as soon as the journey through the corridor of light is complete, the moment of the great reunion arrives. According to Cayce's visions, you don't land in an emptiness or a darkness. On the contrary, from that field of gentle, bright energy, forms begin to emerge, sometimes nebulous, sometimes with perfectly recognizable outlines. They are welcoming beings, who come not by chance, but in resonance with your own vibration. Some arrive with a familiar look, maybe your grandfather, a childhood friend, who knows, maybe even a pet that marked your entire life. Others you don't recognize immediately, but you feel an instant intimacy, a kind of inexplicable ancestral longing. They are not in a hurry, they don't demand anything. They are there for love, for a mission, for a cosmic connection. Each being that appears, according to Cayce, has a unique purpose: to ensure the journey is safe and the impact of death doesn't become a chasm for the newly liberated consciousness. If your earthly journey was full of deep and loving bonds, you will probably find beloved faces, calming smiles, and open arms celebrating your return to your true home. If, however, life was one of isolation, confusion, or intense spiritual searching, it may be that spiritual guides, masters of wisdom, or loving beings of pure light present themselves. But never ever does the journey happen in complete solitude. The welcoming beings act as bridges between worlds. They mirror your inner state, attuning the reception to your level of spiritual development. They are, let's say, the antithesis of any notion of a solitary hell or eternal punishment. Even souls who depart in search, marked by mistakes or regrets, receive help. Compassion is the higher law. Who do you imagine meeting first? A love from the past, an unknown sage but absolutely familiar to your heart? Some animal that always represented purity? Note, according to Cayce, the meeting isn't a prize, but a natural response to the mental and spiritual frequency you carried during your life. And many, upon being surprised to find beings of light they don't rationally know, recognize, in an intuitive instant, sister souls from distant eras or silent masters from past journeys. There are also those who report, during near-death experiences, a collective, almost choral presence of love. There are no words, just a deep feeling of acceptance. It is exactly this sensation that Cayce described. You don't cross alone. You can't. The very structure of the universe, according to him, prevents a soul from getting completely lost. You will be guided, supported, surrounded by care until you are ready for the next steps in the territory of the invisible. This first meeting changes everything. The fear of death will dissolve upon recognizing, in the eyes of the other, the reflection of all that is eternal in you: love, forgiveness, wisdom, or even the longing that, finally, transforms into a reunion. Imagine now, you there, surrounded by a light that doesn't judge, embraced by the warmth of companions you will recognize beyond words. Feel the emotion, the breaking of the fear paradigm, and the most touching revelation. No one, absolutely no one, makes the crossing alone. And if the universe had any doubt about the eternal value of love, it ends here, before this portal of return. And you, have you ever thought that who you will reunite with at the threshold of infinity perhaps depends precisely on how you live, feel, love, forgive, and build your inner journey at this very moment? I want to know, if you could choose, what person or being would you wish to meet as soon as you cross the threshold? Share here in the comments. Your memory, your desire, your story can be the light on the threshold of someone who is watching this video right now. Ready? In the next chapter, we will dive even deeper into the spiritual layers of this process, when the welcomers become mirrors of our own heart, and destiny reveals that we are, after all, co-creators of all our journeys, in all worlds. Perhaps one of the most touching revelations in Edgar Cayce's visions is this: who receives you on the other side of life is a reflection of what you have become inside. This idea is profound, uncomfortable, and at the same time liberating. According to Cayce, the beings who welcome you after death don't appear by chance, nor for reward or punishment. They are attracted by the vibrational frequency of your consciousness. What does this mean? It means that the quality of your thoughts, feelings, and decisions while you breathed on this plane determines with whom you will spiritually resonate when this life ends. It sounds abstract, but think of it this way. If you cultivated love, compassion, gratitude, inner growth, your spiritual vibration will tune in with beings of high light, with loving consciousness and multidimensional clarity. Your welcomers will probably be evolved guides, sister souls happy with your arrival, cosmic companions from ancient journeys, including loved ones who vibrated in a love similar to yours. But what if you lived consumed by deep resentments, untreated hatred, destructive attachments? If your consciousness remained hardened, obscured by ego, fear, or pure materialism? In that case, there will still be a welcome, but it will be different. The beings who approach you will be in resonance with your vibration at the moment of death. They don't come to punish you, but to mirror what you still need to heal. And this doesn't mean you will be surrounded by horrors. Cayce was clear. There is no eternal hell in the traditional religious sense. What exists are vibrational dimensions compatible with the soul's internal state. And these reflections can be uncomfortable, yes, but they are pedagogical, wise, even if harsh. Everything is a revelation, never a condemnation. For example, a person who lived with extreme mental rigidity, blind to judgment, may be received by a more neutral, empty vibration, where there are no contrasts or emotions, a state of gray waiting. But soon, beings suited to that vibration emerge and show through images, feelings, and inner dialogues what needs to be understood, what she refused to see while incarnated. And at some point, this soul recognizes in itself who it really was and who it can become. This means that death is a continuation of the journey of self-knowledge. What you didn't want to see in life, you will see there. What you ignored inside yourself will be mirrored in the forms that receive you. And look, this is beautiful, because there is purpose even in the most mysterious encounters. Have you ever stopped to imagine who will mirror you when your time comes? What kind of vibration are you feeding now in your daily life? Are the people who surround you today a reflection of what you want to vibrate eternally? Crossing over, according to Cayce, is standing before the essence of oneself. And the greatest gift of this journey is to realize with unheard of depth who you have become throughout all your lives. Imagine two scenarios. In one, a person leaves life with serenity, with a peaceful heart. In the other, someone dies consumed by fear, resentment, or anger. According to Cayce, this not only affects how the soul makes the journey to the other side, but profoundly shapes its first experience of the spiritual world. Yes, your mental and emotional state at the moment of death is like the entry code for the subtle realm. It's as if you carry with you the final filter, the last tone of your energy field, and this creates the lens through which you perceive what comes next. Cayce explained, those who pass away in a state of terror, anger, or denial often take a few moments, days, or even years of earthly time to realize they have already died. The experience is nebulous, confusing. The soul may remain tied to the scenes of death, trapped in emotional loops, desperately trying to communicate or understand what is happening. That's why so many spiritual traditions talk about the importance of dying in peace. Because in fact, this is the greatest determinant of the clarity of the experience right after the transition. On the other hand, those who die in a great state of acceptance, with love in their field, are often received with extreme gentleness. The recognition of the new dimension is immediate. The soul smiles, feels relief, meets the welcomers with joy. In some cases reported during Cayce's readings, people who departed in a state of spiritual grace experienced the journey as a calm evening, followed by a new sunrise, a dawn in eternity. But this should not create guilt or anxiety. Cayce's proposal was never to stimulate fear of death, quite the opposite. He wanted people to understand that life needs to be lived with the same consciousness with which one wishes to die. The calm at the threshold of death is born from a life with real purpose. Therefore, every time you forgive someone, you are training your soul for the journey. Every time you love, you are silent. You choose empathy. Instead of harsh judgment, you are building the luminous road that your spirit will travel, and not just in the future. These choices already change your energy field today, influencing not only the moment of death, but what happens to you now, in every part of your emotional, spiritual, and even physical life. Cayce said, "The mind is the builder." This means that what you think, feel, and believe builds your present reality, but also the landscapes you will find later. And that's why it's worth repeating a very simple question. If you died today, with the emotional state you carry now, what would your journey be like? It's an uncomfortable question, but it's also a spiritual key. Not to create fear, but to generate intention. We can live in a lighter, more lucid, more loving way, and that completely transforms our death. And above all, what comes after it. Now imagine this. You cross the threshold. You feel the presence of the welcomers. But then, looking into the eyes of one of them, something unexpected happens. You don't recognize them with your mind, but you feel in an overwhelming way that you've known them for centuries. Maybe they were your father 3 lives ago, or your daughter in a distant Oriental incarnation. Maybe they were your master of initiations in a lost temple in Atlantis, according to Cayce. Yes, he said with conviction, we meet again. The journey isn't just a meeting with familiar faces from this life. It is often a revelation of multi-incarnational ties. Cayce saw the soul as a multi-dimensional being that wears different bodies, languages, cultures, throughout many cycles, always returning to the spiritual plane between incarnations. Thus, in the moment after death, it is not uncommon for a soul to see faces completely unknown in this life, but which trigger intense emotions, crying, joy, reverence, inexplicable familiarity. This happens because these people, beings, or presences belong to your spiritual ancestral line. They are companion souls from long journeys, united by deep bonds of learning, love, or karmic challenge. Cayce called this the soul circle, a field of specific affinities that transcends linear time. This explains why, even without conscious memory, you can feel strong attractions to certain people, or aversions that seem to make no sense. All of this echoes from ancestral connections that gain new meaning after passing on. Imagine, for example, reuniting with a great love you had during a life in ancient Greece. You never knew this in this current life, but there, before the eyes of that soul, everything returns with immediate emotional impact. And it doesn't matter if that being later reincarnated as your mother or even your enemy on the spiritual plane. All these stories coexist, recognize each other, and integrate. These reunions are charged with healing. Many heal what life separated. Others reignite spiritual commitments. Cayce spoke in his messages of mothers reuniting with aborted children, of siblings separated by wars in other times, of loves that could not be lived, finally being celebrated, recognized, understood. But to experience this to the fullest, spiritual sensitivity is necessary. It's not enough to have been someone in other lives. You need to have evolved to the point of realizing the value of the eternity that unites us. And this is the gift. This knowledge changes the way you relate to everything in this life. Who are the people around you, really? How long have their souls been guiding each other through journeys and lessons? Edgar Cayce said, "You are never in front of a stranger, only in front of someone you, for now, have forgotten." This forgetfulness is part of the game of life. But in the instant we die, according to him, this fog dissipates. Memories return, bonds are restored. We regain consciousness of who we were and who we can still be. Not in the selfish sense of identity, but in the breadth of our mission as spiritual beings who live, die, and are reborn for the love of evolution. Perhaps, then, what matters most today is not just thinking about death, but about how we treat our relationships here and now. What bridges are you creating? What bonds are you deepening? What ties are you denying? Because they will all be there on the other side. And when you look into the eyes of an ancient soul and it whispers, "I told you we'd see each other again," you will finally understand. Nothing that is love, real and true, is lost in time. In the next chapter of this journey, you will discover that these reunions are not only for calming the heart, but for healing it. They are therapeutic, deeply transformative encounters, and there are entire places on the spiritual plane dedicated to emotional reconciliation, the healing of traumas, and the reintegration of the soul. In the centers of light, the soul not only remembers, it restores itself. The journey to the spiritual world is not just a reunion, it is also a treatment, a cure, a return to wholeness. Edgar Cayce reported dozens of visions in which souls, after crossing the threshold of death, were not only received by beings of light, they were guided to true spiritual therapeutic centers. Sacred environments, which were not limited to physical structures like earthly hospitals, but which vibrated in energy fields so intense that the very presence there already began a process of deep healing. These places, according to Cayce, are intended for souls who have gone through traumatic experiences, mental imbalances, sudden deaths, or those marked by intense pain, such as accidents, suicides, murders, or terminal illnesses. But they also welcome those who carried, even until the end of life, grief, guilt, emotional addictions, and unresolved psychic burdens. Imagine, you wake up on the other side, still confused, perhaps full of misunderstood feelings. And before you can fall into despair, loving beings gently guide you to a space that emanates understanding. You feel as if you are enveloped by a warm light, by voices that don't speak, but welcome. There, everything that was anguish begins to dissolve. It's as if the soul's blockages, the knots it brought from earthly life, are slowly untied. Some of these centers work with sound waves, colors, mental vibrations. Others follow more symbolic methods, with images that lead the soul to introspection until it can understand its own suffering. Cayce was clear. The spiritual world is not a tribunal, but a space for reintegration. Even those who committed serious acts are welcomed, sometimes with even more depth, because their souls are wounded. One example among Cayce's files was of a woman who took her own life after years of depression. Upon crossing over, she was received by two calm beings and was taken to a healing hall, where sounds similar to angelic chants floated. Her pain, originally carried to the other side, was transformed, not by words, but by comprehension felt in the soul. Another account refers to soldiers killed in combat who didn't understand that they had died. Confused, they repeated the same scenes, reliving the trauma. The welcomers, upon realizing this, lovingly guided them to spaces where they could relive the final scene symbolically, to then free them from the repetition. This is why, according to Cayce, the greatest attribute of the welcoming beings is therapeutic compassion. They not only receive you with love, but help you remember who you are, beyond the pain. This shows us something very profound. The afterlife is not just a continuation, it is a treatment of the soul. It is the universe's system working to restore consistency, sanity, and spiritual clarity to those who fought, suffered, or got lost within themselves. And more than that, it's a great opportunity for a new beginning, on a plane where all layers of the psyche are known with love. Have you ever thought, what would your soul need to be healed of today? Maybe the forgiveness you couldn't give, or the anger that still lives in silence. Maybe a love not lived. All of this will be taken to the other side, but not to punish you, but to be seen, loved, and restored. And then comes one of the most impactful moments. After the welcome, after the stabilization of the soul in the emotional field, comes what Cayce called the life review. It's not a judgment. It's not a divine sermon. It's a mirror, the most sincere and revealing one you have ever seen. In this review, the soul doesn't simply remember what it lived. It relives. In an expanded state of consciousness, the person experiences the most significant moments of the incarnation again, but now from a new angle, that of other people. Yes, it feels how its actions emotionally affected those it met throughout life. If you cause someone pain, you will feel that pain with the consciousness of that other being. If you cause joy, you will feel the same joy you inspired in the other. You become the recipient of the impact you created. Cayce describes this process as an instant learning, charged with emotion, but also with compassion. No one punishes you. It is your own soul that wants to learn. Imagine remembering yourself at 5 years old, screaming with fear at school. and being able to feel what your mother felt seeing you cry, or reliving that cutting conversation with your father, but now feeling the emptiness you caused in him. Or on the contrary, that time you hugged someone without saying anything and changed that person's day. Now, you feel how that seemingly simple gesture saved that soul's heart. This review is not intended to make you suffer. It is a window of karmic understanding. You understand what karma really is, not a chain of punishments, but a system of learning. Seed, cause, energy, return. Every action generates an echo. Every gesture matters. And this learning is not just individual. Everyone involved in the relationship field will understand each other. You will be able to see how that enemy helped you grow, how that frustrated love was necessary to discover something within yourself. Think, what would be the moment in your life that would affect you the most if you saw it now with the eyes of the other? Cayce said that great spiritual masters prepared their entire lives for this review because they knew that this moment is one of the greatest portals of conscious expansion that exists. And even more beautiful, some souls, after going through this review, choose to return to Earth, not out of obligation, but out of a love for learning, out of a desire to perfect what they still couldn't live to its fullest. The life review is an invitation, a deep call to loving responsibility. How do you want to be remembered in the eternity of people's hearts? Everything you have heard so far is not to entertain you. It's to wake you up. Cayce did not leave us these revelations to create a new belief system, nor to instigate empty mysticism. He revealed these truths to teach us to live now, with more depth, with more truth, with more intention. Do you understand the weight of this opportunity? If death is a passage, if what awaits you is a reflection of your vibration, if your actions impact lives that will relive with you, what are you doing with your most valuable present, the now? Have you been acting like someone who will cross over with lightness, or like someone who will need a long time in the healing halls before understanding their own story? Earthly life is brief, but it echoes forever. Cayce said, "Every gesture of true love is eternal." And that's why this video is more than a spiritual explanation. It is an emotional invitation to transformation. Take care of your soul now. Cultivate kindness. Treat your bonds with tenderness. Make peace where there is still pain. Walk with more awareness. Not because there is a hell waiting for those who don't, but because, according to Cayce, the journey will show you what you did with the time you received. Ask yourself now, are you living in a way you would like to review on the other side? If the answer is uncertain or uncomfortable, don't run from it. Face it with courage. The greatest spirituality is not in flight, but in presence. And if you felt something inside, right now, don't ignore it. That feeling is a call. Maybe you know someone who needs to hear this. Send this video to them. Comment below. What part of this spiritual journey most touched your heart? What reunion do you wish to experience on the other side? And share this space with us. Here we are building a current of consciousness, a community that wants to live with lightness, deepen its bonds, and prepare its soul not only to die in peace, but to live with truth. If this content touched you in some way, leave a like now, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell, because you never know when a new teaching can change your life or that of your soul. And remember, death is just a curve in the road of existence, but the way you live is the entire map.